Hello, everyone. Welcome to In Colour, hosted by myself, Hamish Hallett, where I interview individuals from a variety of professions and to get to know these people on a more personal level. I hope you are having an amazing day wherever you are listening from. I've also changed up the setup because I know last episode I did, my mic was hanging around all the time. It might have been a massive distraction to you, so I'm sorry about that. But I've now changed the setup a little bit, so it should be all good. Now, for this episode, I'm so happy to bring on Marian Thomas. She is an award-winning author with her latest novel, The Caged Butterfly, receiving the Best Book Fiction Award for African American Fiction in the United States. She has also received the AALBC Bestseller Award, the USA Best Book Finalist Award twice, and her other book, I Believe in Butterflies, ranked among the top 100 most popular authors in literacy fiction on Amazon. She is also featured on various television stations like Fox, NBC, and CBS, and has appeared on magazines that include USA Today. And away from her author duties, she has also provided workshops for young adults such as Destiny Daughters of Promise and the Job Corp. And she's also a blogger for Path and 11alive.com. I know, amazing introduction for Marian Thomas, but for today, we really want to understand Marian away from her amazing success and to understand what Marian is really like on the personal level. Before she became an award-winning author, she was on her way to become a journalist, but she took a massive detour. So let's actually find out why she took such a detour. So Marian, thank you so much for coming on to In Colour.
Thank you.
So yeah, I really want to understand that. What influenced you to take such a detour from being a journalist to now being an author? I really want to understand that experience.
Yeah, it was, revelation, as they say. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's such a pleasure. I was listening to you read all of it. I was like, oh my goodness, who was that?
It's like, oh my God, is that me? Oh my God, no way.
Exactly. It is weird when you hear those intros because sometimes you don't realize the things that you've done, and it just seems like, the journey has been a long journey. And, sometimes you forget about all the good things that have happened along the way. So thank you for that. That was a great reminder. But it also really shows that, the reason why I kind of started writing and that was an important step for me to take because like you said, originally, I did really want to be a journalist. I actually wrote for the paper in college. I was a news editor, sports editor. I had a full scholarship to major in journalism and actually minored in journalism, but received my bachelor's degree in business communications and my master's degree in business management. So and I still love that idea, that concept, of journaling. About being a journalist, but I'm so excited about being an author. But it was, I wrote my first book, and that's kind of like what, you say, it's like that first piece of candy that a child that's never had sugar before, and then finally they get that first piece of candy and they're like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. I can't really say that, writing my first book felt that way at first, but seeing it was like that, Seeing my first completed manuscript was like having that first piece of candy, getting that first taste of sugar and realizing that, oh my word, where has this been all my life? That sort of moment. So yeah, it was interesting to divert from that journey. And in a sense, I'm still writing. Because, journalism, it's still about writing. It still has the aspect of writing. So I still feel like I'm true to it in that sense, but I'm so glad to be on this journey as well.
No, that's such that resonates a lot, like the whole taste of candy. I've never really heard of that saying before. That's a really good saying, actually, because I know a lot of people, when they're on their own journeys, have that first sort of glimpse of what they actually are passionate for and actually want to do that. That sounds super cool. And I know you've written, is it 5 novels you've written?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Like that. That's a lot. That's a lot. 5 novels. And like most of them getting like really prestigious awards. That, as you said, does that taste of sugar for the first time, does that feeling happens a lot when you're writing your novels all the time, or has that feeling gone away, or you still have that feeling of tasting like sugar, if that makes sense?
It's awesome because, when it comes to sugar, and I'm just going to kind of stay on that analogy for a second, because, sugar comes, candy in it itself comes in so many different forms, I'm a huge chocolate person, so I love chocolate. I mean, what female doesn't?
Actually, I don't actually like chocolate that much, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I know. I'm a weirdo. I know.
Oh my goodness.
I'm such a weirdo. I know. Literally.
Not like chocolate. No, we cannot consider this conversation.
No. Oh, no. So sad.
But yeah, no, there's so many different forms of sugar. There's so many different forms of candy. And when you write, you go through so many different forms of emotions. Each book brings out something different. You get a flavor for each book. You get a taste of your writing, in each one that you do. And it's so interesting because, sometimes when I finish a book like, The Cage Butterfly, I was like, wow, it had a really good, I want to call it drama with Southern flair, And then when you come into a book like, this one, it's like, Someone Like Me. It was a different feeling because now I'm talking about a character that's a little bit more grown than some of my previous books, and so it's just a different flavor of sugar, and you still enjoy it. It still tastes well. But you feel like, you almost feel like it's, like when you're a child and you first taste sugar or you have sugar, you have that kind of that ghee, that kind of like, but when you're an adult, it's kind of like, oh, this is good. You have a different reaction to it, but they're both still good. So that's kind of how I am with my books. I have a different reaction to each of them, but they all still taste sweet to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And when you touched on like different emotions and stuff, what different emotions were there from different books? What kind of different emotions did you have from those books in that sense?
Well, it's when you're writing a book, the one thing that the reality of it is that when that book is finished, that the important piece comes afterwards, and that's putting yourself out there. You never know how readers are going to react to a book. You never know if they're going to like the book, if they're going to get the book, if they're going to connect with the characters. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Every author pretty much, I don't care, even some of the biggest known authors out there have gotten, bad reviews. You're going to get someone that says, oh, I hate this, I hate this. And, so you do go through those emotions, when you're putting a book out there, when you finally hit the last page, and you put that period at the end of the sentence, then the real work starts. And so you have those emotions of fear, you have those emotions of completeness because you've completed something, you've done something, you have those emotions of accomplishment because you've done it. But then you also have those emotions of what if they hate it, so it's a lot of things all boiled up. People think that, being an author is easy, but it's not. It's really hard, because especially for me who, I'm not one, excuse me, to really, I'm not comfortable with putting myself out there. I'm really not. It takes a lot for me to do that. And, so it's all of those emotions that kind of welled up in you when you send your book off and you say, okay, here it is. Here is my baby. Be gentle with it, please. And those sort of things. And, sometimes, that happens and sometimes it doesn't.
That's a really, because I know totally mean by like posting out your content and not sure how the reaction is going to be, because it's always that fear. I find a lot of people, maybe quite a few authors who don't want to get their book published because they are scared of that feeling. So it's really good to how you've opened up to say like, there are times when I'm like worried about the reaction of the public and things like that. Has there been one particular book that you've published that you're really worried about the reaction of other people when you've written?
I would say that I wrote a book called Blue Butterfly. And that book was one of those books that I was really worried because it was a very young character. And we were talking about, and it was around the time when Misty Copeland, who became the first major Black African-American ballerina. And so there was a lot of talk, a lot of story, and she broke amazing barriers. And so I was not sure how people will react to that, to my story of coming out with this fictitious character who is also trying to break barriers and become the first, African American ballerina. And one thing I liked about Misty Copeland when she talked about how she didn't look like the traditional ballerina, and having people understand that it's not about the look, it's about the skill, and that was the message in the book. And so I wasn't sure how people react to it, but that book actually went on to become a stage play. So it actually opened up at the Marietta Performing Arts Center. So it was exciting to see it come to life. And there were actors in the play that had been in some of the Tyler Perry movies, and so it was really, I can't even explain what that feeling was like to have your book produced and become a play, and actually see it. But it was just an amazing feeling. But it kind of calmed those fears that I had, and saying, hey, yeah, I did capture the essence of what she was talking about breaking those barriers in this book, and people enjoyed it. They enjoyed the book and they enjoyed the play. So, it was a good feeling.
Yeah, no, definitely, 100%. I think that sounds incredible, the fact that your book was going to go into a terms of play. And I was going to ask you, how does that feeling feel? But even trying to describe it is probably very, very difficult to describe. But I think that's incredible. I think it shows that, once you publish something out, anything can happen, and to change that book in terms of a play is something absolutely incredible. And there is something actually. I was looking up, doing a lot of research on you, and you have this really funny quote. Actually, I know I sound like a stalker, right? But not. It's
okay. My husband will forgive you.
I don't know how to go with that, but anyway, that's a really interesting quote that you said. I think it was something like, aspiring authors should, live, laugh, and write. Now, I really want to ask you this: why should authors live, laugh, and write? And actually, how do you do this? Actually,
well, I believe that everything. A lot of authors say, "Well, how do you find the inspiration for your books? What inspires you?" And really, what inspires me is life. So the things that you live, the things that you see, the emotions that you feel, the things that you experience, that's the live part. So you have to write about the things that you lived, or write about the things that other people have lived. But you also have to write about the things that made you laugh, the things that made you smile, the enjoyment that you got out of life, the good times. Those are things also that have to inspire you, because when you're writing and you want to make that reader connection, you don't want to, you want to take the reader through a series of emotions, but always make sure that there's some laughter in there. Always make sure that they can smile throughout somewhere in the book, and then it's just writing. It's just, sitting down and starting that process. So that's why I always use that quote, live, laugh, write. And in that order, do those things. Live life, laugh about life, write about life. And that will help you to find the inspiration that you need.
Mm. And how do you do that then? How do you live your life? How do you laugh about it? And how do you write about it? I'm really intrigued. I'm just intrigued how you do it in that sense.
Yeah, but not taking yourself so seriously. If you can't laugh if you're always, you take everything that people say seriously. You take everything that happens in your life seriously. You think everything that happens is, this or that or whatever the case may be. A lot of things happen just because they happen. They're coincidence. And sometimes even the worst things that happen to you, sometimes you just have to find a reason to laugh about it. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I can't believe that happened to me. It's, I mean, yeah, really, you're reading, you fall out of the chair and you laugh about it because, no one saw it, hopefully. And, you just find things, you find things to laugh about. And that's me, I try not to take myself seriously. I mean, like in the beginning, you were talking about all of these things that, I've done, and those things are great. But, I don't take those things and say, oh, I'm this, because I know I'm not. I'm like this little ant, in the whole spectrum of life. It's like this, you're just this little ant, and ants a hard worker, but I imagine that they have fun too. I've watched the Ant movie. I mean, and they had a lot of fun in that movie. So I am thoroughly convinced that they laugh in their own way. So yeah, that's how I live. That's how I laugh. That's how I write. And that's how I do. That's my process.
And like you can have spoken a little bit about you being in the public life and having all these awards, which is, it's incredible. And it's good that you kind of not, let's say, like take those awards and then you kind of stayed humble and stayed rooted to who you are and your foundations. It seems like, which sounds super, super interesting. But like, what's it really like being in the public eye? Because I mentioned the fact that you've been, on news, you've been on television, you've been in magazines. Like, what's it actually really like being in the public eye for you?
Well, for me, I mean, it's I'm not one of those major authors out there, so it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure for them it's probably even probably like a Nicholas Sparks, who I enjoy reading his books. It's probably very different for him than it is for me, I'm sure. It's great sometimes when you're out and people say, "Hey, Marian, didn't I have your book?" and they recognize who you are, and that's oh my goodness, that is like the awesome. I was at this conference and someone was like calling my name. They were like, Marian. I'm like, oh my goodness, who knows me here? And I'm turning around. She goes, aren't you Marian L. Thomas? I'm like, yeah. She goes, I have your book. And I'm like, oh, awesome. I mean, and those are genuine moments. I mean, those are genuine moments that you just, it validates everything that you do, and I would tell any reader that, hey, if you ever see an author that you enjoyed reading their work, please, by all means, go up to them and say, hey, you never know the moment. There were so many times, I tell you, when I wanted to walk away from writing. When I wanted to walk away from, oh yeah, absolutely. And those readers are the ones that talked me off the ledge, so to speak. It always seems like those moments happen just when I needed them to, and it just validates that you need to stay on your author journey. It was a validation for me that I needed to stay. I mean, I have a friend of mine and she's like, she goes, I'm always like, oh, this is my last book, I'm done. And she's always like, and then the next couple of months, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm writing, so it's, because then you read a review and you read how it touched a reader. And wow, all of a sudden you've got this spark again, and you remember how important writing is. And so that is, that's such an important thing. And I've had those moments, and it's not about being in those moments. It's not about being in the public eye. It's about what you get from being in the public eye. It's about that inspiration that you get from them. And that's the way you have to look at it, because if you look at it any other way, then you forget who you truly are.
Interesting. And do you ever get overwhelmed by it all? Like the fact that someone says to you, "You're my inspiration," does that ever get overwhelming at all? Or do you actually like being called someone's inspiration?
Wow, it's like that Spider-Man movie that says, with great power comes great responsibility. It's
Spider-Man,
like
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a huge, I'm a superhero. I love the cape, but in other Spider-Man has no cape. I still like Spider-Man, but it is a responsibility when someone walks up to you and says that you're their inspiration. Sometimes you don't know how to take that. You don't know how to feel about that, because it's like, wow, now you've got to do something. And then you feel compelled to say something inspiring to them, and usually all that comes out is, oh, that's great. You don't find those inspiring words that you want to just, say that, because they're looking for something. But so yeah, it is a responsibility when people tell you that, but it's also a motivation. It's about there's a close associate of mine, close friend of mine. Her name is Ella Curry, and she runs a magazine, and she really talks about your legacy. What is your legacy as an author? And that's so important. You want a legacy. I mean, we all do, whether you're an author or not, and to know that part of your legacy included inspiring someone, motivating someone, encouraging someone. I don't think it could get better than that. I mean, of course, you want to love is ultimate for anyone. We want to be loved and feel love and give love and those things and that as well. But, to know that your legacy include inspiration, I mean, that's priceless. That's a privilege.
And you talk about legacy and including that part of it. What is your legacy then as an author? What if we go, whatever, how long it is, when, in, I don't know, like 2085, I don't know, and people were like reading in schools and then found you in the textbook. What do you want to be remembered for as an author?
I would definitely want to be remembered as an author who really tried to craft a story for women that brought characters to life, characters who faced real obstacles, characters who had to cross difficult barriers to find love and to discover all the wonderful possibilities that life can offer, because that's something that I strive to do in each and every book. So I would hope that, and that would become my legacy, that would be what a reader takes away from my books. Or, if someone were to write, my story, as it say in a textbook, that is something that they would say she did.
That's a good legacy. It seems like you want to have people to really overcome so many barriers and to build up a sort of like form of resilience, it seems. Is that a good way of putting it, would you say?
Yeah, it's a good way of putting, but it's not just building up resilience. It's about experiencing those difficult things and overcoming those difficult things, and realizing that a lot of times in most of my books, the main character needed help to do it. So it's also about realizing our own vulnerabilities, and that we all need help. We all need assistance. We all need encouragement, motivation, and, to really help us to break those barriers. Some people feel like, I got here on my own. I worked hard and I got here on my own. That's not true. Because at some point, someone gave you a break. Someone encouraged you. Even even the person that told you you couldn't do it, if that was the reason why you did it, if that was the reason why you made it, then you had help. So you didn't do it on your own because they inspired you. They motivated you. Is that saying let your haters become your motivators? Then that's how you got there.
Yeah, that's a
You
good saying.
didn't do it on your own. So it's that sort of thing, and that's what I try to also incorporate in my book, is that all of my characters had someone in their life, someone strong, who provided them with solid advice that really helped them to get on a road that helped them open up the doors of possibility and help them to step through that door, not just open it. Because a lot of times there are doors that open, but we don't always have the courage to step through it. And so that's something else in my books that I hope, and I write for women, I write women's fiction. So I definitely hope that women who read my books feel like they had a little empowerment, a little motivation, a little inspiration to step through the door.
Nice. And it seems like, would you say, because you're creating these characters for your books, would you say, is there any sort of influences within your life that are kind of projected into these books, or are these books that you write, are they away from your own experiences? If that makes sense at all.
Oh no, because it goes back to my favorite quote, live, laugh, right? So there's always a piece of me in every single book.
Nice.
Every single book, whether the character is sarcastic, whether they're, emotional, whether they're smart, whether they are giving, whether they're, any of those things, you put a little piece of you in every single book. And I think that's the reason why when a book comes out, there's always that, like, we go back to that fear of how people are going to take it, because that there's a piece of you in there, and you don't want to feel like, oh, if they reject the book, they're rejecting you. But it's a hard thing not to feel, because that character is a piece of you. There's something in that character that reflects who you truly are.
Yeah, and then what would you say then? Because that's really powerful to understand. Like, because I feel like a lot of books, a lot of authors do translate a lot of their own experiences into books. Actually, a lot of them, and it seems like you do with yours. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that sounds super, super interesting. And away from you being an author, because I know we're slightly running out of time, but there's something I want to ask you actually is, are there certain like misconceptions that people have of you, if that's you being an author or you as an individual, would you say?
Well, I think sometimes people feel like because I'm an author, I just have this great imagination.
Really?
Because they're always like, man, your imagination must be like awesome. You just think of these amazing things. And it's like, I can't take credit for that. I can't take credit for my imagination. Like I said, life is what inspires me. I didn't create life. I just learned how to see life and use life and write about life, but I didn't create life. So it's not about my imagination that's so great. It's about learning to harness life to spark my imagination. And that imagination was given to me. So I'm thankful for it. And it's learning to use it as a skill. It's like, well, that sword sort of thing. So yeah, that's, I think that's the misconception people have, not just about me, but about authors in general. They think that authors just do something they're not capable of doing. And maybe, your thing is not going to be writing, but it can be something else. Your imagination can help you get on your path and help you determine what you should be doing. It's like I was telling, someone else, is that, you don't have to do what I do. Find what moves you. Find what you're inspired to do and do that. So yeah, I think that's the misconception that people have about me and about authors in general.
Well, that's good. I mean, because in color, we always want to try and bring out the actual realness out of authors and things like that. And I find that is always a really big misconception. Sometimes like authors can just sit down, write a book in like a day, and it's all good, it's all done. There's actually maybe there's times where you're like maybe there's times where you're just like sitting there, just like, oh, I need to pick up an inspiration.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't find something, right?
Yeah,
it seems like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. Oh my goodness. I would love to meet an author that could just write down and crank out a book in one day. That's
yeah.
That's great. No,
I mean, there's some people who can,
yeah.
Sorry,
No, I'm not one of them. No,
yeah.
not at all. Not at all. I can't sit down and just write a book. I do sometimes throw a movie on when I need inspiration. I might, go outside or do something to find that inspiration that I need. Like I said, it doesn't just always come to me. Sometimes you have to, force it. You really do. Sometimes you have to force the inspiration. And that sounds funny because how do you force inspiration? It's you put yourself in the moment. You find things that can inspire you when you need to be inspired.
Gosh. That's a really good quote. That's a really good one. That's really, really great. And
honestly,
I wish I could talk to you today, but Marian, this has been an absolute pleasure. No, it's absolutely been an absolute pleasure. It's like Looney Tunes. It's like, it's all. I don't know. I can't remember the saying, but it's been great. It's been a really great conversation with you, and I've really enjoyed. Yeah, really enjoyed. Getting to like understand you a bit more. But where can our audience at Common Sense find you? Basically, this is just a plug in social. This is the platform's yours, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the best place to find me, connect with me, is through my website. Through my website, you will find all of my social channels. So I'm on Instagram, always posting some crazy picture, some quote, something that inspired me. I do a lot of that on Instagram. Facebook, I'm always posting events and things that are happening in my life. So connect with me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, not as much as I probably should be, but LinkedIn as well. So yeah, but I mainly kind of hang out more so on Instagram than most of all of the social platforms. But yeah, definitely visit my website. I encourage everyone to please go out and get a copy of my book, my newest one, which is called Someone Like Me. It is out there. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, any of your retailers out there. You can purchase the book. It is women's fiction, and I encourage you to go out and pick up a copy. And don't forget to leave a review. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, leave a review. Yes, leave a review. Yes. Definitely. Marian, it's been an absolute pleasure. And no, thank you again for coming on to In Color. And to your audience who are watching this could be your first time watching us at Common Sense. So if you really enjoyed this episode with Marian, like, comment, and subscribe. And also, if you're feeling a bit cheeky, why don't you join Common Sense Network? Join.tcsnetwork.co.uk. And until the next episode where I interview another amazing individual from an industry, stay in color. That's what I'd say.